Welcome back to the ILTV News Podcast. I'm Executive Editor Maayan Hoffman, and we're glad to have you here. Now, I have with me today Yuval David, an award-winning filmmaker, journalist, and actor who is well known around the world. But he is not just an artist. He is, in fact, a Jewish advocate, working with government and non-governmental organizations throughout the world to advocate for the Jewish people and for Israel. Unfortunately, Yuval has been targeted by a number of hate groups online and in real life. So don't forget to follow him. Let's shift those algorithms and bring it home for the Jewish people. Welcome, Yuval.
Wow. Thank you so much for having me in your studio, for plugging people, following me on social media. You know, why I appreciate that is we also recognize that for most people, there is no difference between media and social media. 97% of people under the age of 45 receive their news and world information from Instagram and TikTok. So when I receive these calls from the FBI and other organizations that monitor hate groups telling me that I need to be vigilant and aware, by the way, that's a quote, they said something that is important for us to do is, just as you said, to help shift the algorithm. So everybody needs to be more active on social media. And if they're already active on social media, yes, absolutely, follow, connect, engage with my social media accounts, but also those of ILTV, those of Jewish, yours, Maayan, those of other Jewish activists and advocates who are front lines online. It's a battle that we all need to fight because people are receiving wrong information, disinformation, and misinformation across social media. It's up to us to shift that algorithm.
100%. It was interesting speaking to you before, when you brought up how, right now our content is being seen more by the haters than by the choir. And I thought, well, isn't that a good thing? And in some ways it is. But you actually say that the choir is pretty weak. Talk about that.
We have a very weak choir. I keep hearing people talking about our echo chamber. But you know what? I've been a Jewish activist truly almost my whole life because I was raised that way, to understand what it means to be a proud Jew, to understand what Zionism means and why I'm a proud Zionist. And we see people talking about, we're only amplifying the echo chamber. Our echo chamber seems like a birthday balloon that somebody bought at a corner market 4 days ago and is now hovering close to the ground. We need to amplify the echo chamber so every Jew can do what you are doing with your brilliant, amazing way of being able to relay information and talk about almost any topic. I mean, I've heard you speak and you can just talk about it from an educated, prepared, and informed place. I aim to do the same thing. We need every Jew and ally to be able to do that. And most Jews around the world cannot. So why are we worried about staying within the echo chamber? If we can amplify the echo chamber of Jews and allies, we'll be able to amplify the world around us.
Now, Yuval, you're working on doing that in some ways through this new initiative, The Voice of the People, which is an initiative of President Isaac Herzog. That's actually where you and I met pretty recently.
Correct.
You were in town for that, for this event. You're in town for this event. Tell me, I know you met with Herzog directly. What is it that you spoke to him about?
We spoke about the needs not just of the American Jewish community, but the international Jewish community. Yes, we know that the vast majority of Jews around the world are in Israel and the United States. We cannot overlook the international Jewish community because as we battle for Jewish rights, for the existence of our people in Israel, in the United States, we need to make sure that Jews can be safe anywhere. Because if a Jew isn't safe somewhere, then Jews are not safe anywhere. The other thing that I spoke to him about was the issues that we have within my own LGBTQ community. I've been raising the red flag for years about the rampant anti-Jewish hatred, the anti-Jewish racism, some people call it anti-Semitism, within progressive left-leaning movements, the movements that I've been part of for most of my socio-political career. It's been largely ignored. It's been largely ignored by major organizations in the United States, by government officials that Israel sends out to represent Israel internationally, and the ones who I saw in the United States. And they said, these small factions are really small. But you know what? Those small factions were much more vocal than the pro-Jewish, pro-Israel factions. And now the anti-Israel, anti-Zionist narrative has proliferated throughout the movements that should actually be supporting Israel and the Jewish people on values alone. but they don't, and we're too late. So we now need to make sure that we're able to empower those who are struggling within these movements and communities like me.
Right, and you really advocate for everyone to be an advocate, that people within the Jewish community should really learn to advocate on behalf of Israel. But what is your advice for that? I mean, you talk about, oh, you or I, we can speak, but the reality is it's very difficult to speak up. What advice do you have for people who want to be an advocate? How can they get better?
How can people get better as advocates is to know how can you advocate for yourself. If you understand why you support your existence and your forward movement in life, understanding traumas and challenges are always going to appear. Because you know what? Life also kind of sucks. Horrible things happen. That is life. It cannot stop us. Again, this is all coming from the Jewish and Zionist spirit of moving forward, of being hopeful and optimistic. We're a people who've been targeted and attacked. There have been pogroms and the Shoah and the Farhud and October 7th and continued genocidal threats by horrendous terrorist organizations that want to eradicate us. But we're still hopeful and optimistic. We could easily be pessimistic and say, you know what, people want to kill us. Let's forget about being Jewish. Let's forget about Israel. And let's just not move forward, or let's convert, or let's change ourselves. But we don't do that. We fight for the future. We plant trees that the next generations will enjoy and that we won't enjoy ourselves, because we understand that the future is going to be there. So I say I'm short-term pessimistic, but long-term optimistic. And to your question, what can people actually do? If you know how to represent yourself, if you know how to represent your family and your friends, then you know what? You know how to represent your community. You know how to represent your nations. Focus on the values that are important to you.
So let's talk about today. I know you said you're long-term optimistic but short-term pessimistic, and there are children, or I shouldn't say children, young adults on college campuses that are really struggling to be able to talk about their Jewish identity, that are afraid in some ways to walk around in the United States. Talk about that challenge and what advice you have for those particular students, because it's nice what you said. It's meaningful, it's beautiful, it's even inspiring, but in the end of the day, you still have to walk down in the college campus and worry about whether you're going to get attacked.
Correct. Well, I've been attacked. I was attacked during the Pride March in Washington, D.C. physically, as was my group. Same thing in the New York City Pride March. It's ridiculous that I need to have security when I am a speaker across the United States and Canada or lead workshops, because Queers for Palestine and JVP and SJP and all these organizations show up and try to cancel the events and sometimes are physically threatening. So I get it. I understand the fear. And people often say, Yuval, aren't you afraid to walk around with the Maayan David or even the hostage tag medallion? And I say, yes. And that's why I wear it. We need to be demonstratively Jewish. We cannot be Jews who tremble in the shadows. This needs to be the era of the strong Jew, not the weak Jew. And do you know what? There are people who are battling for our existence across the world. The soldiers in Israel who are fighting, oftentimes getting injured and even dying. Every week we look at, or every day, we look at our phones to see what's going on with the soldiers, and we get these notifications that soldiers are risking their lives for us. Each one of us needs to understand that we are soldiers for our people, no matter what your platform is. So for the Jews on campuses, in high schools, in public spaces in the United States and around the world who feel threatened by being Jewish, we need to understand that this is the harsh reality that we face. But I don't believe that we should be hiding, and I don't believe that we should be hiding in the shadows instead of being proud, bold Jews. We need to fight for our rights, and it sucks.
Well, I mean, Yuval, people like you have been working really hard throughout the last 16, 17 months of this war since October 7th in order to really get those messages out. Nonetheless, there is still a tremendous amount, and I think you mentioned, of misinformation on the social networks, even by mainstream media, really reporting misfacts about Hamas and the situation going on here in Israel. Why do you think that is, especially in Western media, where you would think that people are educated and open-minded?
Yeah, it's a loaded question that you ask, because you'd think that they would be able to understand what are facts.
What is a terrorist organization, for example?
Totally. You'd think they would. And there was at the start of the war, the October 7th war, all these Western media outlets were quoting Hamas given statistics.
They still are.
They were quoting the Gaza Health Ministry, and they weren't saying who runs the Gaza Health Ministry. Then they course corrected, and they were saying, and by they I mean CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS, Sky News, BBC. Then they course corrected and said the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry reported X amount of people were killed. In a minute after an Israeli missile struck, there were 40,000 people killed. I mean, it's amazing how quickly they can count, while it took Israel more than a year to count exactly how many victims there were on the October 7th attacks. But anyway, I digress. So we get this misinformation and disinformation because media outlets are trying to get the scoop. They're trying to share the information as quickly as possible. These days, media is not what it used to be. It's entertainment journalism. How can you captivate the audience? How can you grab them in 30 seconds? And how can you get the information out there before somebody else is? Well, you know what?
100%.
This is a hot topic. We say no Jews, no news. Nobody's talking about what's happening in Syria the way they should be. Nobody's talking about what's happening in northern Nigeria the way they should be. So when I say things like this, people say, oh, it sounds like you're practicing whataboutism. I was like, I'm an actual civil rights, social justice, human rights activist and advocate. I care about my values. I care about the values that I wish to protect and defend people around the world. What are those values? And this goes back to how people can be an advocate. For example, I believe in women's rights, LGBTQ rights, equal access to education, freedom of religion. I believe that everybody should be able to run for government and everybody should be able to protest their government. Those are pretty basic, low-level values. I support the governments that and controlling ruling parties that support that, and I do not support the ones that don't. So I support the democracies around the world. I support Israel. I do not support Hamas because of the values that I care about. Hamas doesn't care about LGBTQ rights. In fact, they kill LGBTQ people. Women do not have the freedom to walk around and wear what they want, marry who they want, or not get married. They don't have that ability. Those are pretty major things that made me not support Hamas years ago. So the mind twisting, the disinformation is purposeful, and people are drinking the Kool-Aid.
So they must have pretty effective PR. What do you think we could learn from Hamas? I mean, I hate to say that, but it seems to me that they're doing a pretty effective job.
Absolutely. They know how to manipulate people with the narrative. What is the narrative that people wish to show? They create sensational videos, they sensationalize the stories, and they give people the headlines. Meanwhile, while Free Palestine sounds so awesome and approachable, we say Am Yisrael Chai. Most people don't even know how to spell it or pronounce it correctly.
That CH is pretty difficult to get out.
Yeah, but, you know, it's a good guttural chach.
Mm-hmm.
Or we give them a bunch of facts. They're like, well, what are you talking about? Where is Palestine? There is no Palestine. And if you're talking about Palestine, then it used to be under British mandate, Palestine, Eretz Israel. People are forgetting that the British mandate called it Eretz Israel, and before that it was the Turkish Empire. And then we talk about 1948, and we talk about 1967.
And I'm already lost.
And we're already lost. It's like we give them facts. We're
I'm tired, Yuval.
Exactly. And that's our problem. We have all of this information, and those who are educated can say, well, I call it what the fact. I like that.
That's good, what the fact.
So I give people facts. Mm-hmm. And I think every Jew and ally needs to be able to give the facts. But the problem is most of the world doesn't want the facts. They just want the emotions. They want to be useful idiots. They want to be easily manipulated to see something quickly on social media and then move on and get their lattes or work out or whatever it is that they're doing.
Well, and I think they also want to be inspired. You know, this Free Palestine sounds beautiful and vivid and bold, and all of these facts sound boring and trite, and people want to join a movement.
So what is the movement that we need to have? What do you think, Maayan?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to give my opinions about what movement we need to have, but I think that definitely...
Why not? What is your opinion about the movement we need?
No, I think that what we need to be doing as a Jewish people is to actually be playing the same game as Hamas. I don't think we should write sensational videos. I don't think we should misconstrue facts. But I think in the end of the day that we need to get at people's hearts.
Amen.
People need to understand the power of what it is to have the State of Israel and what it would be if we didn't.
Correct. And those are videos, that is content and articles, and even everybody who's on social media or just speaking with the friends that we have, the allies, but also the future friends. Most people around the world do not care about the Jews. Most people around the world do not care about Israel. They just don't. Those are our future friends, the people who haven't made up their minds because all of this is too complicated. So I agree with you 100%. We need to relay what our lives are about, who we are, to humanize the existence of the Jewish people and to humanize the existence of Israel, proving why Israel is important. I talk about the diversity and the multiculturalism of Israel. I talk about the LGBTQ people in Israel. I talk about women's rights in Israel. And the fact that there are people who are still trying to advance these movements within Israel, because Israel is a democracy. How awesome is that? And that's why I'm active with the Voice of the People, as you mentioned, President Herzog's initiative, where where 150 Jews from around the world came together. And what was amazing was these are all people, mostly not social media influencers, people who are actually doing real world activism, trying to find solutions and not just thinking outside the box. There is no box. We were in this environment that it was treated like a think tank, like a startup, recognizing there are major problems. Things were not handled correctly within the Jewish space and within the Israeli government. And we're saying, well, what can we do? How do we empower the people to do things in a new and fresh way? And that's also why I'm a delegate within the World Zionist Congress.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that. What party are you running for, or what platform are you on?
So I'm with the Kol Israel party.
And what is that party?
That's the All of Israel party. It's a pluralistic party, which is incredible because there are people within my own party who I have differing political opinions with.
Wow,
I have different approaches to my own Jewishness pertaining to religion. And we're all part of the same party. Now, what I like about that is it says we are a diverse people. Let's all come together and make sure that we're advocating equally for all of us. And that is something that's exciting because that is the future of our people, of our Jewish people, saying, look at how amazing we are. Look at how many different types of people we have. Now, Kol Israel also with, for example, with Young Judeans Stand With Us, who are also part of the Kol Israel party, is we focus on education. We focus on what Jews are experiencing in K through 12 on campus and beyond to empower people to have a voice. Now, why is it important for people to vote around the world? Any Jew around the world can vote within the World Zionist Congress. It is the only democratically elected organization representing the Jewish people in the world. So you can go to Vote Kol Israel online. You can go to the American Zionist Movement website online.
You could also choose another party.
Yeah, of course.
There's, I think, 21 parties running in the
Yes, and there are a lot
election.
of different parties to choose from, so people can go and see which party represents their Jewishness, whether it's nationally, ethnically, culturally, religiously, whatever part of their Jewishness. And there are all these parties that will represent them. Why is voting important? Because we're talking about $5 billion, $5 billion US dollars that are going to be distributed over the next 5 years. Voting for a specific party will affect how that $5 billion is going to be distributed.
And just so our listeners understand, and that's because once the people are elected or the slates are elected, they sit on committees and help to allocate the funds for the 5 major Jewish organizations that represent the Jewish people.
Exactly. So this is, like, I'm part of this group, Voice of the People with President Herzog. I'm part of this group, the party within the World Zionist Congress, Kol Israel.
Which is Voice of Israel.
I know. So apparently there's a
lot of
theme.
voices going on here.
Lots of voices. But that's also what's exciting. And you know what? We need to remember, yes, as you said before, follow me on social media, follow you. People need to follow you on social media, and ILTV and Kol Israel and Voice of the People and all of these organizations that are trying to understand, and not just trying, but are understanding, how can we better represent our people and our values with a forward-thinking perspective. We cannot function the way things were functioning for a long time because you know what? Most of the legacy Jewish organizations have failed in many ways. They have. Most of the Israeli representatives that have been going to America and internationally have also failed. And those who are able to accept that without arrogance are the ones that understand that failure is part of movement. We're all going to fail in one way or another, and probably many, many times. We need to learn from these lessons and our failures and do better. Now we need to do better because we are at war. This is an existential threat. And that doesn't only include the battles against terrorism. It includes the battles against the terrorist supporting groups. It also includes the battle to how can we increase Jewish education.
100%. It's interesting because talking about learning from our failures, and everything that's been going on here in this country of trying to even identify to what extent we failed, like where the failures were, and then being able to move on. And you're from the entertainment industry, and I actually want to jump over there just for a minute because what you're talking about with the voices is really tied, I think, to, we say social media, mainstream media. Let's talk about Hollywood, right? And the messages going on in Hollywood, which is probably more dominant than even in some ways in America for sure, is social media and mainstream media. And the voices of the Jewish people, and certainly of Israel, are not looking like they used to in areas like Hollywood, which we used to have this negative, Jews have taken over Hollywood, and maybe Jews are still very involved in Hollywood, but certainly not in the sense that they are pro-Jewish messages. So what has shifted? I mean, why are we seeing so much anti-Israel and even anti-Semitism in Hollywood?
Blatant anti-Jewish racism, and I use that term instead of anti-Semitism, especially because it's more triggering and explains things better. Being Jewish has somehow become uncool. That's a problem. Being Jewish needs to be associated with adjectives like optimistic, determined, resilient, fabulous, sexy, smart, successful, ambitious, because that is really what we are. I mean, oh my gosh, this morning when I went for my run on the Tayelet in Tel Aviv, I couldn't.
A lot of sexy women over there.
And men. And I couldn't even, I couldn't even look forward. I was like, I'm going to run into something because these people are gorgeous. We need to amplify the gorgeousness of our people. We also, speak back to your Hollywood question, we have a lot of closeted Jews in Hollywood. We have a lot of closeted Zionists in Hollywood. We also have a lot of closeted Republicans and closeted conservative and closeted people who feel like they can't really share what they actually believe and the values that are important to them because it's not what the mainstream wants. There are people in Hollywood, just like many other businesses around the world, including the business of politics, who aren't sharing what they actually care about because they want to appeal to a mass amount of people. Right now, the movements that are against the Jewish people, against Zionism and against Israel, which is, by the way, is all against the Jewish people, seem to be proliferated much more. They want to make sure that they still have an audience base. So as I speak in lead workshops across the United States and Canada primarily, I also go to Los Angeles and I meet with heads of major organizations, major, let's call them power players in the industry, and have either one-on-one or these group, no cameras allowed meetings. And I help them understand how to craft the narrative, how to impart the narrative of what's important to them. And they treat it like I'm saying the most amazing things in the world and empowering them and motivating them. And I was like, you are the most powerful storytellers in the world. Like, why am I here telling you this? And I understand we all need our therapy, we all need our support, and I get it. But I use that as a way to empower them to be the leaders that we need them to be. Not to be afraid to be Jewish, not to be afraid to be Zionist and say, I am Zionist because Zionism, and for your conservative listeners and audience, here's a shocker. Zionism is a liberal progressive movement. Zionism is an inclusive movement. We have Jewish Zionists, Christian Zionists, Muslim Zionists. We have Israeli Zionists. We even have Palestinian Zionists, even if they stay quiet. We also have German Zionists and American Zionists and Mexican Zionists. We have LGBT Zionists. We have straight Zionists. We have religious ones. It's a movement for all people. That is liberalism, progressive. Let's call it old school progressive because now the progressive movement has gone cuckoo town, but it believes in progress. It believes in understanding that things shift. Zionism used to be a very non-religious movement, and then it became a very religious movement. But you know what? When I was part of an archaeological dig underneath the streets of Jerusalem, and I was digging in the earth, I found a coin from the Roman era when the Romans took over Judea, occupied, destroyed, and enslaved the Jewish people. And I found a coin, and on it said, Cherut Zion, for the freedom of Zion. Zionism is not a new movement. Zionism is part of our Jewish people because we always are fighting for our rights. We're always fighting for our lives, for our people, and for our existence. Right. We need to remember that it's been around for a long time, and Zionism defines our Jewishness.
It's incredible because it's become such a heated term. And I mean, we want to take us to the Oscars just for a minute because...
oh, yeah. You wanted to talk about Hollywood.
Yeah. And
then
we sort of shifted to Zionism.
Because I'm a Zionist.
I don't know what went on over here.
I know, because I like the Zionist spirit.
No, it's super cool, except unfortunately not everybody else is aligned with that. And I think that one of the things that you called out very recently, and I did want to speak about it with you, was that is Kieran Culkin, right? After he gave his speech for, accepting Best Actor award in a movie that should have clearly tied to Judaism, he didn't really speak about it at all. In fact, he didn't mention it as part of the inclusivity. And you wrote to him, you invited him to go to the U.S. Holocaust Museum.
I did.
Did he ever respond?
No, I didn't get a response.
No response.
Yet. I hope I'll get a response. He's a great actor. He's an outstanding actor. And from everything I understand, he's also a great person.
Really?
What has happened is within the Hollywood industry, especially when somebody has a platform, they're expected to make socio-political comments. We see it at award ceremonies. We see it across their social media.
They need to make headlines.
Right. They need to make headlines. So why aren't more people in Hollywood talking about their support for the Jewish people? They're being against terrorist groups. If they truly believe in women's rights, LGBTQ rights, freedoms that they are able to enjoy. What happened to the Free Our Girls movement from northern Nigeria? Why didn't that same movement happen for Jewish women and men who were raped by terrorist groups and taken hostage? Why weren't people talking about that? And we have this massive problem where people feel that Jews don't need help. Jews don't need to be represented. Jews are successful and run Hollywood and run banks and run governments. If we really ran all this stuff, don't you think we'd be in a much better place right now where Jews on campus could walk around with a Maayan David or with a kippah and Jews around the world would all have access to education? Why is it that Jewish private day schools in the United States cost anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 a year per student?
Why is that?
I think it's insane. I think it's ridiculous. I went to a Jewish day school from kindergarten through 12th grade. It helped solidify my Jewishness and to not only provide an amazing education, but support my Jewish life that I was getting at home. There are so many people who cannot afford that kind of education. And it was much cheaper when I was in K through 12. So first, let me say that. We need to make sure that all of these Jewish donors and philanthropists are also supporting people's access to getting that quality education. Because Sunday school for Jews in America isn't enough. People learn shalom and ima bait shimush beit knesset. They don't know what they don't know enough about their Jewishness. So that's the same problem that we have in Hollywood. People don't know enough about their Jewishness, and they don't know why Jewish values and Jewish people represent what they want to represent.
Interesting. I mean, for a minute, let's just talk about this education piece, because there's a program that's being run right now by the ministry, the diaspora ministry, where they're working with the federations and some others in order to reduce the cost of Jewish day school, try some different pilot programs in order to get more students into the day schools. But, they're touting this program. They got very excited about it. It actually got ready to start before the war was a bit delayed, and now they've launched it. But I remember, I've been doing this job for, I don't want to age myself too much, but almost 30 years.
I don't know. You still look like you're fresh out of college.
Oh,
so
thank
good
you.
for
I'm going to take that.
Take it. Good for you. What's your secret?
Yeah, thank you.
No, anyway, but back to the program.
Back to the program. Okay, so I remember almost 30 years ago discussing the same issue. And we've had programs come up and go down and up and go down, but nothing's really been able to truly bring down the cost of day school or get more students to go. Mm-hmm. So, I guess my question for you is, do you have a solution? Do you have something in mind? You're talking a lot about we need to educate the masses, we need to share these messages, send people to day school, but there doesn't seem to be a magic wand to get it done. What's yours?
This is now a message to every Jewish donor and philanthropist around the world. Stop donating to non-Jewish organizations. Recognize that your donation dollars need to go towards creating scholarship funds at these Jewish day schools. And also, if you are involved with a Jewish day school, if you went to one or your children go to one, figure out what that school can do to lower the cost of tuition. Why does it cost so much to go to a Jewish day school? Why does it cost so much to go to these private schools? It's making it virtually impossible for so many families to go there. So there are a lot of donation dollars that are floating around. Make sure that you're supporting our people and the future of our people.
What else do you think philanthropists should be giving to?
I think philanthropists should be giving to the organizations that are actually boots on the ground, that are actually pursuing actively with actionable results. That's who they should be giving to. We should be empowering the Jewish studies departments across schools to have specific.
We could replace Qatar.
We could replace Qatar. So what did Jews do at major universities, for example, in the United States? We built buildings, the Cohen wing, the Schmulkenstein wing, the whatever it is. We built these buildings. Well, what did Qatar do? What did the Islamist and Islamist supporting groups do?
They supported mines.
They supported mines. They filled the buildings that we helped build with people who are imparting the narrative against us. We need to do the same thing. The Qatar Foundation, when they distributed billions, many, many billions of dollars to some of the top universities in the United States, they said to the universities, if you want to take our money, you need to enrich the Middle Eastern studies departments. You need to provide tenure to these specific professors. And every year you're going to give scholarships to these foreign students. Well, what did those tenure professors do? What did those foreign professors do? They enriched students for justice in Palestine. They enriched Jewish Voices for Peace. By the way, Jewish Voices for Peace is neither. It is neither Jewish nor is it for peace, but it just has a really great name.
It is a good name.
And that's what we need to do. We need to say, okay, let's support the Jewish studies departments. Let's create an environment where every Jew on campus can at least get a minor in Jewish studies. But we also need to make sure that the correct professors are there, because there are Jewish studies departments that have people who are anti-Zionist Jews working and teaching there. I'm sorry, if you're an anti-Zionist Jew, you do not know anything about Judaism. Zionism is ingrained in our Judaism. And a message to the anti-Zionist Jews out there, you are kapos, you are failures to our people, and you're not actually pursuing your Jewish culture, values, identity, religion, education. You wouldn't do that if you actually knew anything about your Jewishness. And I call those people out. I call BS, and sometimes I don't just say BS. I use all of the words.
Thank you for not using them now.
Yeah, but it's also, I lean into that what the fact.
Yeah.
How can somebody be anti-Zionist who is Jewish?
Well, and how can somebody be anti-Zionist if they understand Zionism, as you said before? I think people really misdefine it, for unfortunately decades. So, Yuval, we're going to run out of time, and
Too bad.
I
could talk to you forever.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm really enjoying the conversation.
But you're really awesome. I mean, not just your work here at ILTV, but you understand the power that you have as a storyteller. You understand the power that you were born into as a Jewish woman. Jewish women have shaped our Jewish people and have been instrumental in our peoplehood from the beginning. I was just in Shiloh, in Judea and Samaria, and I stood in the place where Hannah made her prayer for children, and she is recognized not only as the first woman to be a prayerful leader, but the first Jew to have an individual prayer, to shape the way our Jewish people then pursued our understanding of spirituality, and also is recognized as one of the first people on the planet to have individual prayer that didn't include sacrificing animal or crops. That is one of the types of women who've shaped our people. Yes, Queen Esther, we just had Purim. Yes, Golda Meir. Oh my God, I wish Golda Meir was back.
Yeah,
we need
kidding.
We need some Golda. But I put part of the blame of the challenges of our peoplehood on our Jewish women. Our Jewish women need to step up. We need you.
Okay, it was going really well when you were
know.
praising the Jewish women, but now I'm starting to question where this direction is.
Totally. We need our Jewish women. Our Jewish women are the biggest heroes of our people. The mothers, the daughters, the grandmothers. Like, there is so much more responsibility on the shoulders of Jewish women because that's just our people. Like, I'm such a mama's boy. Still, like, if I don't get advice from my mom, like, I can get lost in, my male ego brain and whatever. Like, We need that. We need the help of our Jewish women. And even right now, around the world, I think we need more Jewish women in leadership roles to present who we are. Because people today listen to women in a very different way than they'll listen to a man, especially a straight man. Oh my God, we need a woman Israeli prime minister. We need more women ambassadors. Some of the best consul generals that I've met around the world from Israel are the women. We need more. So yes, step up. We need you.
Well, I think that is an excellent note to end on. Yuval David, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to chat with you.